there, welcome back to another show. Now today I'm going to be talking about Strange New World Science Fiction at DEFA, which is essentially a collection, a 4-film collection from Eureka Masters of Cinema. All about DEFA was basically a East German production studio that was, which covered the output of East Germany really for the communists over time, but it was still set in East Germany. East Germany was different from like Russia and its outlook. Same as Poland was different from Russia. There was different stages and there were different times in the communist rule from Russia and the Eastern Bloc. But there was Stalinist era, then there was other eras afterwards where they changed their attitudes at certain points. So this came about during the space race, and then into the 70s these films came out. So it spread over like 15 years. They weren't making sci-fi movies all the time. But this box set actually delivers and gives you, the 4 they made. So the 4 they made were, and I'll try and be the Silent Star, which was based on Standish Lem novel. There was the Dust of the Stars. There was also you can also grab Signal to Space Adventure and Eolomea, and you get this nice little booklet as well, and you get some nice extras. Now, I'm going to keep the booklet out so you can give the names of the directors of these films as they come up, because names of directors and names of people from foreign countries, it's always going to embarrass you. So you may as well be prepared. So, DEFA had a policy of creating output for the propaganda machine of East Germany. They started not long after the war, and of course their philosophy is to create a positive Soviet or positive communist view that could be exported to the rest of the world, that obviously did not have the death camps, the Stalinist death camps. That was not really in their thing. All the dark side where everyone's equal but some are more equal than others, that was not part of their plan. The mass extermination of those who dissented was not part of the thing they put in these films. It's just like that idea that individuals' lives were not really that important to them. That was not part of what they were promoting. What they were promoting was they were going to bring a future to the world where everyone was equal, and all these different races could work together and they could communicate together, and it was all going to be a wonderful, wonderful future if only you listened to the communists and ignored those horrible capitalist scumbags from America. Just the same way in America, it was like there's communists everywhere. They're out for you. They're going to kill you, and yeah, it's all their fault. And we're perfect. And don't think about what we're doing in South America or Europe or anything else. Just don't think about that stuff. Don't think about Vietnam. It's both sides were horrible, but the Stalinist purges kind of put the communist side over the top towards total scumbaggery. But you don't get that in these films. This film is like the humanist future of the Communist Party, and the optimism involved. So the first film, The Silent Star, was the most optimistic. That came in the early 60s, and it was coming just after the first man in space, and the Cold War was on in space, but no one had really, it just kind of ramped up, so they were doing this as like a propaganda film. And so of course they present the Soviet bloc. They don't say Russia, they say Soviet, as if if communism has spread through the world and everybody understands it's benevolent and all that stuff. The thing they were trying to promote. It is kind of you're watching this and you're thinking, well, Star Trek is pretty left wing. except the fact that in Star Trek it's much more of a military operation, but it's still kind of very influenced by some left-wing politics, Star Trek, when you think about it. Anyway, that's not even a new thought, by the way. Everyone knows that. But just watching these films, it kind of brings it back to you. So the idea is that they've received a signal from Venus suggesting there's something on Venus that they have to investigate. So they create this exploration that they're going to go to Venus. They're going to try and work out like what's sent the signal. Now, this thing about Venus is the thing that ages the film the most, because further research into Venus has shown there's nothing that can live there. It's too warm, it's too close to the sun. There's just no way in hell you're going to live in. No way any civilization can grow in Venus. It's just not compatible with life as we know it. Especially life that can build things the way humans build things. So that's the one thing you have to kind of forget about. Just say, okay, that's not scientifically accurate. But if we ignore that, the film is fun. The film's a lot of fun. So it's a case of they have to go and figure out this signal, and you get to meet all the comrades of the ship. One which is American, who goes against the wishes of his fellow Americans who wish him not to go on this trip. He says that he must represent America for humanity, investigating this thing. He doesn't care what they're going to say. So they all go. So he joins them, and they go to Venus in this snazzy ship. That, yeah, you can see the wires. You can see the wires in a lot of these effect shots. It's late 50s technology, early 60s technology, where most of the stuff is using wires and models, and that's the way it goes. It's 2001 has yet to be even written, never mind produced. So some of the model work is a bit dinky, really, but you just have to kind of accept that that's just the way it is in this film. They go to Venus, and this is where the film really kicks in. Now, the first half of the film is the character stuff and the communist propaganda, which is very naive, but it's kind of enjoyable because it is like a optimistic version of the future. The same way, if you look at the 50s American films, it's the optimistic version of the future from the American side. And there's quite a lot of overlaps. Essentially, scientists are scientists no matter who you get the money from. And you're going to have an idealistic view of things. You're going to, you're probably going to make the politicians back home weep with your naivety. But it's enjoyable. It's really enjoyable to watch. And because it was East Germany making these films, East Germans could actually add in some of their own humour. So it wasn't total Stalinist propaganda, even though Stalin had already died. But it wasn't that kind of tight grip on every bit of culture. They could add some humour of their own. And there was influence of American films from the 50s, like Forbidden Planet and things like that. There's a robot. A very kind of useless robot. There is a robot. And when they arrive on Venus, the fascinating thing with this film is, as soon as they arrive on Venus, is like, well, people who made Alien saw this film. Alien was heavily influenced by this film in the second half. And the second half is just wonderful. Scientifically, as I said, it doesn't make sense. But if you just imagine it's different, it's not Venus, it's a different planet, and it's just them investigating a planet that destroyed itself. Because they get a signal saying that they're trying to work out what the signal actually is as they're travelling. And by the time they get to Venus to work it out, it's actually a signal basically saying they're going to attack the Earth and destroy it. But by the time they get there, they realise all life's gone. They've destroyed themselves, and the investigation is how to destroy themselves, what happened. And it all comes back down to nuclear bombs and nuclear threat, and the idea is they figured out nuclear energy as well, and it destroyed them. And this film's a very anti-nuke film. You know, the first anti-nuke film. And the whole idea is we can't get on, we'll destroy ourselves. Which is a very kind of, hippie-ish message. And but as it's a well-meaning message. Again, it's because where the film was made was East Germany, and it wasn't fully communist to the degree that the Russian was. It can add some nuances, and it can add some humour, and it can add some character work. The character work's not amazing in any way. It's all very basic, but it's still enjoyable to see in that kind of naive early 60s way. And it's a very enjoyable film. It's just the second half so much better than the first half. The second half is when they hit Venus and they start investigating Venus, it gets so much better. Some of the effects are not good, but they are kind of psychedelic and weird, and they are kind of trippy, and you know, they're very much influenced by earlier science fiction, where you could go to another planet and actually create something that was very much out of this world and unique. And yet Alien totally saw this film. This is there's even the landing light things you see in Alien in this as well, but it's on the planet rather than ships. But there's that sense of, you're watching this thinking, okay, someone in Alien saw this film. Same way Planet of the Vampires, someone in Alien saw Planet of the Vampires. You know, I mean, it's interesting to see like obvious, films that were made that obviously influenced other films. So this was directed by Kurtz Meitzig, and it is a delight. Despite its flaws and the fact it's propaganda, and Standish Lem, who wrote the original book, hated the film, but he also didn't like his own book because he thought it was naive, and it was for young people. It was a young person's book, and he felt like he'd fund it to propaganda for the Russian state because he knew how bad it really was. But just watching it as a historical film and just watching it for a filmmaking thing, it's like, it's entertaining. It's flawed, but it's entertaining. Now we go to the weakest of the four films, which is Signals, A Space Adventure, from Gottfried Kolditz, who did two of these films. Now, A Space Adventure, the reason why it's called A Space Adventure is 2001 had just come out, and it was 2001 A Space Odyssey. So you can't call it a Space Odyssey if you've got a Space Adventure. And it's a bit of signal, an alien signal, just like 2001. And you have to go on a journey to investigate the signal. But what they've actually tried to do is try to find this ship that's been destroyed, and they'll try to see if there's any survivors as well as investigating the signal, they'll try to find out if there's survivors, even though logically there shouldn't be. And the story is basically them learning there actually is and trying to find the clues that have been left by the survivors who are stuck in this one little ship with very limited supplies. And as they truly find the clues to find them. But most of the film is basically them travelling there, and you get to see the people involved, and you're getting to see the idea of who they all are, and it's much more like traditional in 2001 because those characters, very basic characters. None of these characters are that interesting. Nor is the effects that interesting. The effects are very much, they want to be 2001, but they feel more Thunderbirds. And the model work can be pretty dodgy, and sometimes they try and be scientific, and sometimes the ships float out in a way that does not work, does not look like anything would happen in space. So it's weird. It's a weird film, but it's also a boring film because it's trying to be something it's not. It's not using its own imagination. It's been a copy of something, but it's also trying to put in a kind of rescue film at the same time, where ultimately the signals is really the signals of the people trying to get rescued, and the whole alien thing is not really important at all, and it's just as boring. That's the big thing for me, is this film is boring. If a film works in this kind of genre, either the effects and the atmosphere is great, or the characters are great, or maybe both are great. This film doesn't have any of that. It's like, yeah, the characters are mediocre at best, and mostly you're kind of not paying attention to them, and the story's not that good. So, I mean, if you compare it to like Icarus XB or even The Silent Star, this one is really, really basic, and you compare it to the rest of the films in this box set, It's really, really basic. So I found my attention wandering a lot in this film. This is like, and I've got a lot of patience for this kind of old sci-fi stuff. I've watched a lot of the kind of old American ones recently as well, and I enjoyed them. But this one defeated me. This one completely defeated me. It was just so boring. So I'll go to the other film by this director as well. But so I won't go in the order of the film. So Gottfried Code is also directed In the Dust of the Stars, which is a much better film. It's much trippier. This was made in 1975, 5 years later, and it's like, there is a rocket ship, even though the rocket ship, I think, came from Eolomea, the model of the rocket ship. I noticed it was the same design, so I think it was just like, they took one of the models from that and made that the rocket ship. But I hope no one noticed, but if you're in a box set, you notice. But this one is basically, it's almost like a Star Trek episode. Because Star Trek had been out by then, as well as 2001. Star Trek had floated through various countries at this point, and yeah, it's basically, it's like space adventurers coming to a planet where there's been a help signal, and they arrive there and the people say, we didn't send any signal, we're fine, what's going on? And there seemed to be an attempted sabotage of them and they're trying to land as well. So the suspicion's up, but then they go to a party before they leave again. Suddenly they come back and say, oh, everything's great, everything's fine. And the one guy stayed behind, he realises that everyone's saying the same words, the same thing. There's obviously something's happened. So he goes and investigates, and he finds out that there was a slave population below the surface that is the original people from this planet who are being enslaved by this other race that's, everyone looks human, but this other civilization is basically rolling over them to get them to mine this thing that they need. It's very useful to this other civilization and can be sold for a lot of money. So they're basically colonizers, and this is an anti-colonization film. But it's also, it's like, it gets into more details about how difficult it is for the people to figure it out, because it's like, okay, they now know that they know what they know. Even though the guy gets brainwashed, the guy who sees it gets brainwashed, but eventually breaks through the brainwash and tells them what's actually happened. So they have that problem as, they know there's a problem, they know that the enemy knows that they know, and it's like, if we come down on the side of the oppressed, then that might start a full-on war, because there's lots of political tensions outside of this planet. And they're on the other side from this group, and this could start a full-scale war. So if they play it wrong, it could start a war. If they don't help the people, then what good are they? If they give them weapons, again, it'll start a war. So it's like there's no easy answer to the political side of it. So even once they've figured out who are the bad guys, who are the oppressed, it's not that simple. And the villains are like, we can't have them leave, because other people will spread the word, and there will be a political backlash, and something will happen. So it starts off as a very hippie-ish film. They arrive at this planet and all these people seem to be happy and they're dancing. There's a ruling class, but everyone seems happy. It seems like paradise, and then you find out what helps create the paradise is slavery. Just like in most cultures that have seemingly a lot of wealth, there's always another underclass. And it's an interesting take, because it is much more about why socialism has spread in a lot of countries and why it keeps coming back up. It's like, because in capitalism there's inequity between different people, that in capitalism they don't seem to give a shit. The people in charge don't seem to care about the rest of the world. And that always will create more socialists. It just always will. Unless you really sort of capitalism, you can't really rule this out. And that's not going to happen for a very long time. If you look at the world today, and you look at just what's going on all over the world, just the way human nature is, so it creates this problem. And this film is showing you why these things happen. but they're also doing the sci-fi, silly sci-fi thing with a lot of campy stuff. The villain's very campy. There's lots of things that are trying to be hippie-ish and weird that come across as just strange in this film. But there's actually a political point in this. It feels like the director is so much more engaged in this film than he was in the other one. Like Silent Star, it felt like the director was half asleep. You know, or he was so focused on the technical issues, he wasn't paying attention to the actual storytelling as well as he should have. And this one is much better. It's like, it's crazy in lots of ways. There's lots of stuff that's very kind of like, only in the 70s you try that. And yeah, but it is wonderful. It's a wonderfully weird film. It's not the best of this box set, but it is very enjoyable. I mean, Silent Star and this one I'd happily rewatch anytime. Signals I wouldn't. But the best one by a mile is Eolomea, which is it gets everything right that the other films are a bit more imbalanced by. Because it's this one film, even though it's made from a communist country, it doesn't feel especially communist. It feels just a film that's set in this kind of community that is communist based, but it's like, we're not actually going to ignore all the problems of this kind of culture. Essentially, Earth is now this kind of paradise of space exploration, and the ecology seems to be much better off. And it's a more civilized world where all the different cultures, men and women, get together fine. Different cultures have education. It seems less populated than it is now. Like, the work to the population to help the effort a little bit better. And they're moving out into space. And so everything's going really well. And then suddenly a lot of the ships disappear. Like, one after another. It's like, what's going on? There's something. Is there a signal? Is there? What is it? And no one knows what's going on. There's lots of weird clues, but no one can figure it out. At the same time, you go to this guy in this stuck in this like moon that he's monitoring with this other guy, this older guy, and they're both like in the front of space exploration. They're the part of space exploration that's doing the grunge work, doing the work no one else wants to do. Because while at home everyone's happy, having parties and agreeing with nature and happy, there are still some people who have to go and do this work that's difficult. Space work is difficult. And our lead character is this guy who's there and he's burnt out, he's sick of the place. He's fallen in love with this woman who's a scientist, who's the other part of the story. She's on Earth, she's trying to work out what's going on. And we do a lot of flashbacks to them meeting and them falling in love. And he wants to get back to her. He's really... He's like... He was cynical before. And now he's got kind of purpose why he wants to get back. Before he just wanted to go home because he was sick of space. And now he's got like a reason to get home and try and quit this place. And maybe he can get fired just to get off this rock. And he's stuck with this older guy who's... who turns out was this guy who was one of the early explorers in space, and he was like there when they were doing the real hard work. Like, he says, this stuff's easy. This is a breeze compared to what it was, and his generation's been forgotten essentially, and his family have died. He's only one son left, and he's looking forward to retiring so he can meet up with son to Earth and show him what Earth can be. Because his son's in space as well, but his son's been educated in this space station that they've created. So even though there's this mystery, the film goes back and forth between the two lead characters, the people who are in love, and also going back to them falling in love. And the good thing is, because these are intelligent adults, the love stuff's not soppy. It's actually realistic, and it's like, oh, I get that relationship, this works, this is good. She's much more... she's a scientist, and she's much more idealistic about the way the machine works, even though she has to adjust certain things, and he's much more grumpy. But they can see the worth in another person. She convinced him to go back to his job, even though he hates it. But he'll survive it for a bit longer for her. And then they both have to start investigating this mystery as it goes, as it develops, and essentially the space exploration has been shut down completely because of this mystery. So eventually they have to go on separate sites and actually meet in the middle to try and figure out what's going on, like what actually is the problem and how can you solve it. Which I'm not going to reveal in this video, but it is wonderful. The resolution is very satisfying, and it looks at the problems of this society and the issues for the next generation and the issues for just space exploration and being a civilization that's moving forward, but has certain bureaucracies involved, and it becomes a more complicated film where there's no right and wrong answer, and it's like, that's the good thing about Eolomea and Dust of the Stars, is like, that's their problems that are not easily solved. There's no like pat solution at the end of it. It feels like, yeah, like into the 70s where people in communist countries have realised long ago that communism is not the cure-all for everything. There are problems with it. And now they're making films about those problems. Quietly, using science fiction, but they're making films. Now, this film is directed, by Herman Zatoshi, and the actual lead actor, Ivan Antonov, was actually a director as well, but he wasn't directing this one. But Eolomea is the best one. Eolomea is brilliant. Even if you take away the actual plot, just the atmosphere is great, everything works. It's just one of those films you can sit back and just enjoy. It's like, this works. This film just works perfectly. And I was very happy with this box set. I mean, apart from Signals, which I doubt I'll watch again because it is tedious, but the other three films are wonderful in their own way. I mean, Silent Star's naive, and the hippie one is just weird at times, but it still has a lot of good ideas. But Eolomea is worth the price alone for this box set because it is just wonderful. So if you can find the box set, if it's still available, I'd say buy it. You're gonna have a good time. If you like kind of old style sci-fi, if you like to think a little bit. But with Signal, at least when you do Signals, you can get a nice little sleep. Right. So I hope you enjoyed this video. That's me for now. Bye.